The Dallas Cowboys playing the LA Chargers tonight, and we are going to take a deep dive into that game. Adam Trigger will be talking about it. So will Andrew McInnis, plus lots more. Welcome, everybody, to Wager Talk Today. I'm Lawrence Presman. My co-host is Teddy Covers, and this is the best daily sports betting show on the planet. Let's get it going. Adam Trigger joining us right off the bat. And Ad, I hope your Sunday was better than mine.
Prez, well, Sunday was going fine until the last play of the Patriots game. I had Patriots +3, and you could just tell. Listen, when they started to creep back toward the goal line, like, you knew it was coming. Like, you just knew it was coming if you were watching that game. I thought they would have at least, thrown a pick six or fumbled, so I would have had a chance to get the ball back and go and, backdoor it again. But nope, a safety to end the game and kill my Patriots +3 bet. But it was a good weekend of football for the most part. I had a winning week in football, so I really can't complain.
Well, they did try the very rare onside punt, so you had a fighter's chance to get the ball back. Of course, it didn't happen in that contest. Let's shift our focus forward to tonight and take a look at Monday Night Football. Look at the Wager Talk live odds screen right now. I'm seeing Dallas. Let's call them -1.5. It's pretty much that across the board right now. Total of 50 Cowboys road favorites in LA against the Chargers coming off a bye. What do we do with this game for Monday Night Football?
Well, Teddy, first, you got to use the term road loosely when you're talking about a Chargers home game, because I'm sure it's going to be a good portion of it's going to be Cowboys fans. At least it seems like the Chargers are never really the driving force in their own stadium when it comes to the fan base. Interestingly enough, that line, you're right, has come down to 1.5. I have to think that probably means Joey Bosa is going to play. I anticipated him playing here out of the bye week for the Chargers. He missed week 4 against the Raiders. Sore toe, I believe he's been battling. But as far as I know, and I think that line move suggests that he's probably in. Let's go back to last week, though, with the Cowboys. Horrible showing for them on prime time. They get blown out by the 49ers. That now looks worse that the 49ers lost to a P.J. Walker-led Browns team yesterday. But that's a little bit deceiving, too. Tough spot for the Niners. They get a couple of guys injured throughout that game, and they, of course, miss a game-winning field goal that would have won it. Back to the Cowboys, though, I think the reason they got blown out last week is they ran into just a very, very elite 49ers defense. They could do virtually nothing offensively. They couldn't run the ball, and Prescott made a number of mistakes. But that's where I'd be looking for an in with the Cowboys here. So this didn't make my card, at least it hasn't yet. But I do think the Cowboys bounce back here. I would love to know the status of Bosa, because I think, with the bye week and him coming back, it could potentially improve the Chargers defense. But the Chargers have really been poor defensively this year. They haven't had much of a pass rush. And I think that could make life a lot easier for the Cowboys, specifically Prescott, if he's not under as much pressure. And then if he's not under as much pressure, Teddy, I think the Cowboys receivers probably win the battles with the Chargers secondary, which I don't think is a strength for them. So I lean toward the Cowboys here. Another reason, the Cowboys defense far better than the Chargers, over 100 yards better defensively in terms of yards given up this year. And, Herbert is going to be under pressure against this Cowboys pass rush. So I lean toward the Cowboys. If this continues to come down and trend toward a pick, I might have to jump in. That might be a line I can't pass up. I ultimately didn't lay the 2.5, but the way this is getting bet, it's enticing. So I like the Cowboys, and if I do add this as a client play, I will post it to Twitter for free.
So when I look at the Chargers defensively, I see so much talent, whether it's Joey Bosa or Mack or Derwin James, Asante Samuel. I mean, this team has playmakers on the defensive side of the football. Why do you think that defense is underachieved, and do we expect more of the same, or is this defense just not that good for LA?
Teddy, I couldn't agree with you more. This was supposed to be a good defense this year. And so to see them sort of in the bottom 10 in a lot of defensive metrics is shocking. It all goes back to not creating enough pressure. Their pressure rate is way down from where it was last year. And it's just pretty simple, especially when you see some of the teams they've played. Of course, the Dolphins torched them back in week 1. But if you can't get pressure on some of these quarterbacks, they're gonna pick you apart. And that's where I think the Cowboys could potentially have success tonight. If Prescott has some time to make throws, I do think the Cowboys have a chance to run it better than they did against the 49ers, who are just great at stopping the run. But it's all about, pressure rate for the Chargers. If suddenly the Chargers just come out and they're getting after Prescott, it's a whole different story, because that's what they did well last year, was pressure the opposing quarterback. But if they're going to continue to struggle to get home on the blitz and pressuring the quarterback, then in my opinion, they're still going to give up yards because their secondary is average. And specifically in this matchup, covering guys like CeeDee Lamb, I think they're in trouble there if Prescott has time to throw.
Adam Trigger joining us, everyone. You can find him at WagerTalk.com. And here is what's going on this show. Adam's going to talk a team preview in college basketball right around the corner. BYU. Carmine Bianco, with about 6 minutes of notice as he's stepping in for someone, is going to give us some NHL prop bets. Teddy's got his big game breakdown, and Andrew McInnis will come on at the end of the show. He's got one NHL play and a prop bet for us in the NFL. Teddy, there is no 6Bs today. One of our best segments ever. Everyone gets really excited about it. Why don't you tell us why?
Because I'm sick as a dog and I didn't prepare it last night. And I chose this morning. If I had to prepare for one or two things, I was preparing for NFL opening line report as opposed to 6B. So I apologize, guys. I've been on the couch and sleeping. You see my I'm trying not to cough. So I got a little cough drop in my mouth. So I apologize. No 6Bs today. I slept last night, man. I slept like a baby.
Well, that's good news. One of the dumbest cliches of all time, that and you can't have your cake and eat it. What good is a cake if you can't eat it? And babies don't sleep well through the night. Most cliches are idiotic. That tastes like shit. Who would know? Anyway, BYU, Adam, you got a team preview for us. What is it?
Yeah, so this is one of many I've done. If you go over to my Twitter, I've been doing these daily. But this was, Ken Pom put Ken Pom put his ratings out over the weekend, and this was a team that I did talk about already on Twitter. So I wanted to bring them up on the show, and I'm going to try to bring these into, Wager Talk Today and some of the other shows leading up until college basketball. But I found it interesting how high he had BYU rated, because if you go back to my preview a couple weeks ago, I rated BYU pretty highly as well. So the Ken Pom rankings come out. BYU is 36th, in his ratings, which, if you look at a lot of these previews, now remember, guys, BYU heads over to the Big 12 this year. The Big 12 is the best conference in college basketball. 10 Big 12 teams out of the 14 are in the Ken Pom top 50. It's going to be an incredible conference. They've got 4 new teams, so it's a 14-team league. And I've been kind of reading through conference previews, seeing other conference previews, and I see them sort of throwing the newcomers outside of Houston, who's one of the best teams in the country. BYU, Cincinnati, and UCF have kind of just gotten thrown toward the bottom in most Big 12 previews that I've read. Now, I agree with Cincy and UCF being down there, but BYU's the team that I think could really surprise some folks in this league this year. And of course, when you've got a team that's rated lower than they should be and they can surprise, there's typically some value there. And so I think BYU might be a team, especially as you get into Big 12 play, that might be a play-on school for you. So, jot that down and take that into college basketball season with you. And the reason, guys, is I think that a couple of things. One, they couldn't shoot last year. So this was a team that really struggled to shoot the ball. It's why you see on the screen right there 7-9 in the West Coast Conference. It's one of their worst finishes in that conference in pretty much ever, 19-15 overall. But they went out and got some shooters. They got Dawson Baker from UC Irvine, and they got Ali Khalifa from Charlotte, who's a 6'11 center that can pull guys away from the hoop and knock down three-pointers. And he's also a great passer. So I like what they did in the transfer portal there. And then finally, just throwing Provo, Utah into the Big 12, it's going to be similar to when West Virginia came into the Big 12 about a decade ago, where suddenly these schools had to travel out to Morgantown. West Virginia had a very strong home court advantage because of the travel. And I think BYU is going to be kind of in the same boat. You're going to have teams like Cincinnati, UCF, West Virginia having to go all the way out to Utah to play a conference game. Remember, Provo will be the highest altitude in this conference. The previous highest altitude spot in the Big 12 was Texas Tech, at like 3,500 feet, one of the highest Power 5 altitudes there is. And teams always struggle to go to Texas Tech. Now they're going to be going out to Provo, where there's something like 4,500 feet in altitude. So this is a team that's getting rated toward the bottom. They have all, for the most part, upperclassmen. The one sophomore, Dallin Hall, is like 21 years old because he already did his LDS mission. And he was really good when they moved him to the point guard role last year. So I just like the makeup of this team. I went into detail in this one on Twitter. So if you want more information, just go to my Twitter and find where I talked about BYU. But this is a team that I think is going to be pretty underrated, especially when it comes to conference play. I expect far bigger things out of BYU than where they're getting rated. So I think they're a team you should keep your eye on this year.
So just real quick, we're talking about a BYU team that finished 7th and 9 in the WCC last year. All right. 2 games better than the Portland Pilots, right equal to the Pacific Tigers, and I'm just looking at Portland's number 160 in Ken Palm's rating, initial rating. So are we really expecting BYU to be way better than they were last? It sounds to me like you're saying, even though this team was sub 500 in a much lesser conference last year, they're not just going to be better. They're going to be way better than they were a year ago. Is this team we can make money backing every week?
Yes, Teddy, because of that great thing called the point spread. That's why you're going to be able to make money betting BYU. Because here's the thing. Do I think they're going to go in the Big 12 and win a conference with teams like Kansas, Houston, Baylor, Texas, Kansas State? I just rattled off 5 teams that are in Ken Palm's top 25 right there. No, probably not. But where they're getting sort of lumped into these bottom teams, and I think that this is a team that could play their way toward the top half of the Big 12. The key for them is this. They need to stay healthy, and then they need to handle the physicality of the Big 12, which with some of the new guys that they have in the mix, they could potentially do. Last year, if you followed my picks or you listened to my analysis, I played BYU quite a few times. I loved when they moved Dallin Hall to the point guard spot. They had Rudy Williams, who's no longer with the team, playing totally out of position at that spot last year. And Hall was a freshman, but he really made strides throughout the season, especially when they moved him into that role. Now he's a sophomore, and he's an older sophomore. He's like 20, 21 years old. He's a great passer. And with some of their newcomers, I think that this team really has an interesting mix of players that I think could be tough to prepare for. And then you throw into the fact that these Big 12 schools are going to be traveling out to Provo, potentially tough travel spots for teams that aren't used to that. They could be a team that you could take the points with, and because they're going to probably be underdogs in a lot of these conference games, and you could probably take the points with them and make some money. I think they're going to hang around and pull some upsets once we get to conference play.
Adam Trigger, everybody. What do you got to promote?
Yeah, so right now we have a great early bird special for my college basketball. It's the full season. Last year at WagerTalk, I was number 1, 87.35 units gained, and that gets you the whole season from tip-off on November 6th right through the NCAA final, first week of April. I don't have anything up for today, but like I said, if I do end up adding the Monday Night Football game, I'll post it to Twitter, so make sure you're following me at TopFlightSI. And I do have one of my first NFL picks for Week 7 up at 50% off, which is, I believe, everything on the site for today. So, that'll be 50% off until midnight. Go check that out as well.
Adam Trigger, outstanding stuff. Love having you on every single week. Adam Trigger will be here. Guys, we do not, as I said, have the Bad Beat segment. Teddy's not feeling well, but he is fully prepared for the opening line report. So make sure to check that out at 1 p.m. Eastern. If you like what you're hearing, please take 1 second out of your day and hit that thumbs up button. It would be greatly appreciated. I have a bunch of bets to give out in the daily presidential address, so we need to get to 125 likes for that. It used to be 100, but there is inflation. Teddy, before we bring on our next guest, Carmine Bianco, I'm going to use this segment where normally you talk 6Bs to tell you guys a little bit about my Saturday night. So I ended up going to see a comedian Saturday night. Her name was Robin Shaw. I'd never heard of her. I didn't know anything about it. but a bunch of my friends got tickets, and I'm like, okay, what the hell? Do some edibles, head over to watch, a comedian laugh a little. So the comedian was telling a story, and in the story, she was talking about how she went to Jennifer Garner's house, and Jennifer Garner would give her broccoli to eat, just plain broccoli, and she would chew it, but she hated it so much that she would spit it in her hand and put it in her pocket. Cue up half an hour later, and she decides she wants to do a dating game, and she brings up 3 guests, 3 bachelors, in which I was chosen as one. I was bachelor number 2. So she comes to me and she says, bachelor number 2, if you were a food, any food in the world, what food would you be and why? I said, I'd be broccoli so I can get into your pants. Teddy, I tore the house down. Dude, I had 10 times the laugh that this comedian had in any joke. I killed it. Then I bump into a woman who was at the show later because we went to a restaurant across the road. She was like, oh my God, you were amazing. And the women really loved you. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Told you that joke and you were like, bugger off. Something like that. Steve Merrill was like, that's an incredible line. Teddy's like, psh, psh. What? Like, do you have anything ever good to say to me?
The broccoli was in her pocket, not in her pants.
Oh, my God. Oh, okay. I had a shit day yesterday, guys. My first losing Sunday in 5 weeks. There was a time where I thought I was going to get absolutely slaughtered, but I did get out of the day 4-8, which is horrific, but it was looking worse at one point. I needed Philadelphia just to win. I had a teaser with them and the Rams. They let me down. You know who else they let down, Teddy? Our next guest, Carmine Bianco. He is still reeling over Philly's idiotic maneuver. All they had to do was run the ball, a minute left on the clock, and punt. Nope. Anyway, Carm, you want to reminisce over the Philadelphia game?
Yeah, not really, but I will say this is like I had a good NFL week. I win 5-1 in the NFL. The only play I had 3 on Sunday, 4% winners, but I lose a teaser, 5% teaser, and now it's only like my 3rd loss in the last 27 teasers, 23, 3-1. But I lose it because of Philadelphia and how that game ended. It's just. It's the ebbs and flows of sports betting, and I would have loved to have gone on to Twitter and said, "Hey, I had a 5-1 week," but unfortunately, people remember the one that you lost more so than the ones that you win. So
Yeah.
I really didn't talk about it. I was a little peeved, but we move on. But listen, it's been a good NFL season for me. The last 3 weeks, I'm number 1 at WagerTalk, 29 units gained in the NFL. So I just hope to
Nice.
continue to be profitable throughout the season.
Excellent stuff. Carmine Bianco joining us, everyone. Gooseballs. I love Gooseballs. He's in our chat every day. He writes, Prez sucks. Teddy, you might want to wade in here. Is he being specific or is that general? Like I just suck at every single thing?
I would put it in the general category, yeah.
Right. So there's pretty much, I am like an outright sucker.
Yeah.
Okay. Carmine, you got 2 NHL shot prop bets for us. Why don't you give them both to us, and then Teddy will take them apart.
Okay, sure. I'm going to talk about a couple of games I talked about on Puck Time, but I'm not going to give you guys, I'm not going to regurgitate the info and spit out the same plays. You can watch Puck Time if you didn't already watch it up on our WagerTalk TV channel, which you should always subscribe to and hit the like button, of course. But I talked about the New Jersey Devils and the Florida Panthers, and I think Florida is a live dog in this one. And when we look at the shot props, one that I took and was very successful for me last season in the NHL, and I finished first in props last year in the NHL during the regular season. It was Matthew Tkachuk. I took him a lot last year. His shot props are always at about 3.5. You'll never find him any lower than that. It's just the vig that sort of adjusts on it. I think it's about 120 or 125 is the vig on this one. First game of the season in Minnesota, they lose 2-0. He had 10 shots on goal. When do you see a player get 10 shots on goal? It's unbelievable. Next game out in Winnipeg, he only has a couple shots on goal, but he spent 7 minutes in the penalty box, got into it was Florida's been undisciplined through their first couple of games. They haven't put it together as of yet. 4 fewer minutes of ice time, plus he spent, like I said, 7 minutes in the penalty box. So I could see his shots on goal dropping off. Now they're in New Jersey, a team that has allowed a lot of shots on goal, both to Detroit and Arizona in splitting the first 2 games. They lose to Arizona, a team that had only won 7 games on the road last season. They lose to them Friday night at home. I'm looking for Florida. This is their final game of the 3-game road trip. They head home for 4 games opening against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm looking for them to get a win tonight, but the play is going to be Tkachuk over 3.5 shots on goal. He had 322 shots on goal last year through 79 games, which works out to 4.08 shots per game on goal. So I'm going to look at, because I like Florida, I also like shot props for the players. So I'm going to go with over 3.5 shots on goal for Matthew Tkachuk.
Carm, just continue, my brother. Teddy's got no follow-up here.
All right. I get it. No problem. And this
Hey,
is a
he
bad
doesn't handicap. You know what, Carm, we can't handicap every sport. If Kevin Dolan came on here and had a, rugby bet for us, we're not going to have a follow-up for him. It's all good. Teddy doesn't do hockey.
Yeah. And this is a bad beat segment because you guys went from Ali to me. So that's a definitely drop off as far as looks on the screen. Listen, I'm going to go to the nation's capital, Washington, a team, Prez, we've talked about that we believe is going to struggle all season long. They're not going to make the playoffs. I like the Calgary Flames, the new version of the Calgary Flames, same team and different coach, playing so much better. I believe they opened up with an inspired win at home in front of their fans, winning 5-3. Then they go to Pittsburgh, play 40 minutes of absolutely solid hockey, up 1-0, and then they weren't ready for the start of the third, allowed 2 goals in the first 41 seconds, 4 straight in 9 minutes, and lose that game 5-2. But one player, when you like a team, and I like a team to win, I normally look at their shot props. I've done it throughout the season, and I'm going to continue to do so. Mikael Backlund, 3 shots on goal in that Winnipeg game, only 1 shot on goal against Pittsburgh, but 6 fewer shifts in that game, 3 fewer minutes. I'm not sure what happened there. It could have been his discipline on the ice. But I like his shot props, and it's over 2.5 shots on goal. A little juicier, minus 140-ish, I believe, right now. But same thing, 3.17 was his average shots on goal last season. I believe 266 or shots on goal last year. Played the full slate of 82 games last season, and I like his shot prop over 2.5 for tonight's game.
Teddy's muted right now. Teddy?
Carmine Bianco, host of Puck Time, each and every weekday right here on WagerTalk TV. Carm, what do you have to promote? What do you have going for the clients on Half Price Mondays?
Yeah, Half Price Mondays, 3 plays up in the NHL. I am going to add some shot props to it, so it's going to be more than 3 plays. I said to tread lightly the first couple of weeks of the NHL. The first week is over, a little bit more data to work with. And so we're going to amp it up a little bit getting into this second week of the NHL. So at least 3 plays up, should be at least a couple more. And you can get those over at WagerTalk for half the price.
Carmine Bianco, outstanding stuff, Carm. Thanks for stepping in with such, honest to God, you had about 7 minutes notice, and really, really appreciate it. It helps make the show better. Teddy covers. It is time for your big game breakdown.
Big game breakdown time. Let's talk some Thursday night NFL. The Saints and the Jaguars. Right now, looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen, I'm seeing New Orleans -1. There are some -1.5s out there. There's even a 2 on the board right now. But the prevailing number, -1. Total sitting at 40. And look, I mean, the Saints yesterday, they won the yards, 430 to 229, but they went 0 for 2 on fourth downs, 0 for 3 in the red zone, 2 turnovers and 7 penalties. Derek Carr threw for a season-high 353 yards, but with the game on the line, Derek Carr couldn't make plays against a good defense. It's something we've talked about a fair bit on this show and others. Carr, not a quarterback I believe in when he faces a quality stop unit. Now, certainly there's urgency for New Orleans. Dennis Allen, quote, just way too many mistakes, way too many missed opportunities. We got to do a better job of executing our jobs. We're not executing our jobs, then we need to find somebody else to execute those jobs. You know, Derek Carr, I just want to win. The yards are great, but I couldn't care less. That's all I care about. I just want to win. Of course, they're missing field goals, not executing. New Orleans is one of these teams. You know, they've been a dead nuts under squad for the better part of the last year. And I mean, an under machine. I'm not convinced this offense is primed to get a whole lot better anytime quick. The offensive line hasn't played well. Carr doesn't have a lot of time. And yeah, they got playmakers. Alvin Kamara's healthy. He had 68 rushing yards yesterday. Chris Olave had 7 receptions. But they're not getting the ball into their playmakers' hands with room to make plays. And their red zone execution hasn't been very good. Jags have now won 3 in a row after another pretty dominant win yesterday against Indy. But after the game, concerns about Trevor Lawrence's health. And this line likely to move based on Lawrence's status as we approach Thursday night. Because right now, he's pretty iffy. And it's not just Trevor Lawrence. When you look at that Jacksonville offensive line, Brandon Sheriff hurt. Zay Jones is hurt. Walker Little's hurt. It's not a great offensive line to begin with. And the fact that they have multiple injuries on that OL on a short week is a significant problem in my mind for the Jags offensively. Put it all together, look, Thursday night football games don't tend to be pretty. And given that both of these teams right now, a little bit better on the defensive side than the offensive side, we'll look for an under on Thursday night. Jags and Saints expect field goals, not touchdowns, in a game that has all the makings of another relatively low-scoring Thursday night affair. There's my big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Prez.
I have to sneeze. What do I do? What do I do when I'm live on air and I have to sneeze? Okay.
Do it slow-mo.
Slow-mo sneeze. Anyway, Teddy, how can you not bet a New Orleans game under? One of my wins yesterday was New Orleans under. It's now 12 in a row. 16 of 15 of 16 or 16 of 17. I have to go look.
15 to 16.
You know, a couple of last week we had one of our listeners, and I can't remember who it was, right? You know, one of his strategies is to go against the falling knife. New Orleans is, you know, play to the under 10 times in a row, time to bet the over. Well, that didn't go well on the 11th game or the 12th game because they're still going under. And the thing about it is, it's not that New Orleans is going under because of fluke. New Orleans has defined themselves. And to me, that's what makes them a great team to bet. This is a team that is very consistent week in, week out. You look at the Buffalo Bills, they go out and score 37, and they put up 14. Tough team to bet. The New Orleans have already told the world, we're going to win 17-13 games or we're going to lose 17-13 games. And until the line is about 30, we're going to play to the under. With that said, my gut is telling me over. I don't know why. I have a feeling that this is the week they finally do go over the total. Teddy, before we bring on Andrew McInnis, I want to make, Key to Vegas, one of our listeners as well, really nice guys in the chat room every day. He talks about how he's starting to learn how to bet hockey. And he's going to listen to Puck Time, Andrew, me, Carm, Brian Leonard, all the guys, and try to take notes. And, you know, Key, I want to address that real quick. I want to give you guys a real quick, betting hockey 101, just one point. And that is they play 82 games in a year. Some of those games are back to back. This is not baseball where they're standing around most of the game, relaxing. They could have a cigarette in right field, order a pizza in left field. Nobody in baseball is getting physically exhausted from their 3 hours in the park. This is not basketball where guys are taking, mental health days and, oh, my toe hurts, therefore I have to sit and relax. Hockey is a killer. And my biggest piece of advice is don't be looking to bet favorites without looking at their schedule. There is a reason the Anaheim Ducks beat Carolina last night. Carolina was on a back-to-back. I play hockey. It is bloody hard to play 2 games in a row in hockey. You are exhausted. So if there is any sport where there are potentially juicy upsets, hockey is it, because it is really, really physically demanding. Every game takes its toll. These guys do not rest. They don't take mental health days. So don't just say, oh, the Leafs are going to beat Chicago tonight. I think they will. Both teams have the same schedule, so neither is more or less tired. But there is great opportunity in betting dogs in hockey, and be careful betting huge favorites. Andrew McInnis joining us right now. Andrew, anything to add to that?
That Prez, couldn't agree more. I hate hearing people say, like, there's no way the 49ers could lose. There's no way this team could lose. Like, yeah, there is actually a chance they could lose. And just one point I'd really say is that hockey, I think, out of a lot of other sports, I mean, happens in NBA and other money line sports especially, but is the kind of sport where you can really tell certain games when players get up for them or they couldn't give a damn about them. And there's certain opportunity, Saturday night games versus a Wednesday game against the team in last place. There's a reason why certain teams that are bottom feeders have a certain teams that are top teams number, right? Like Arizona and Toronto, or Buffalo and Toronto. Yeah,
Toronto.
Yeah, exactly. But and actually it goes into my first play I was going to discuss, actually, that strategy.
Yeah, well, why don't you go, Andrew? The Washington and Calgary. I think Washington's going to be garbage this year. Absolute garbage.
So do I, Prez, and so far so good. They haven't scored a goal yet. Just one game, but they lose 4-0 in their opener. I find it interesting. The schedule makers have some teams about to play their third game. The Capitals just playing their second game here tonight. They played their first game on Friday, had the entire weekend off, and here they are on Monday night playing their second game. And this is the thing. When I look at this Washington team, I don't see much depth at all. I see a lot of physicality and forwards that really will take care of things defensively. I actually like Darcy Kemper as much as some people don't like him. I think he's a manageable goaltender. But this is a team that doesn't have much speed. They don't have much promise with their prospects, I don't think. And again, the depth is really a problem. Coming off that 4-0 loss against the Pittsburgh Penguins, the power play is about all they have. And Calgary's actually a very disciplined team. Of course, this dates back to last year. They don't take that many penalties. And Calgary, look, they went over in their last game, or they're a team that's been pretty exciting so far to watch. But I think deep down, their identity is playing low-scoring games still. They have a different coach. The coach is sending different messages. It's not Daryl Sutter anymore that wants to play 1-0 games. But I still think when I look at this Calgary team, their MO is going to be defensive hockey. They don't want to trade goals with anybody. And, you guys notice a couple years ago, 5.5 was the norm for NHL totals. Then it was 6. And now we're seeing 6.5 at almost every single total. I think this is too high for a total involving the Washington Capitals and the Calgary Flames. So I'll go under 6.5 here.
Well, let's shift our focus and talk a little bit of NFL for Monday night. Of course, that would be Monday Night Football, the Cowboys and the Chargers. You want to talk a little bit about Dak Prescott, a Dak Prescott prop in terms of passing yards for Monday Night Football. And we're looking at about 254.5 for that. Looking at Prescott's season, he's played 5 games so far. He's gotten over 255 yards once. That came in a game where he hit 28 of 34 against New England for 261. But it's not like Prescott has been lighting up. The scoreboard's been there. But it's not like he's been putting up huge passing yards every week for the season. Just over 1,000 yards in his first 5 games. Dak Prescott, Monday Night Football against the Chargers. We going over or under with this passing yards prop?
So, Teddy, I love when people come on here with props and then they like overs and you say, isn't this supposed to be a bad game? Shouldn't we be betting unders? And finally, we actually get a primetime game, Monday Night Football game that should have some points, right? Any game involving the Chargers does seem to have points. And you're right about Dak Prescott. He's actually a guy, for the record, I've been betting a lot of his unders. He averages 212 yards per game through the air. But this, to me, is as much of a bet on with Dak than it is a bet against with this Chargers defense. They're bottom 5 as far as yards per catch, yards after catch allowed, and also they're dead last in the league as far as passing yards allowed. And looking at Prescott, the games they've been involved in, the game script hasn't really been there. This is a team that's either blown other teams out or they've been a part of a blowout loss. They haven't really been in any tight games. And I think this one has potential to be a tight game, kind of a back and forth contest. And if that's the case, then I feel like he will be throwing the ball a ton and utilizing Gallup and CD Lamb and those guys. So I think that you look at the game scripts for the Cowboys schedule so far, and it kind of tells you why he hasn't gone over, right? I mean, you look at the game last week, of course, they couldn't even move the ball. The defense they played was great. But then in some of the games they've blown other teams out, like the Giants or the Patriots, well, it's just been Pollard and the running game and short passes. They haven't really had to throw the ball very much. So as much as the Chargers score points, they give up a ton of points as well. I feel like this is a great bounce back opportunity for Dak and the Cowboys offense to get going. And it's a decent number, Teddy. I get it, 254.5, and he averages 212. But to me, this is a good bet on opportunity.
So I asked the same question earlier in the show to Adam Trigger about this Chargers defense, because it feels to me like the Chargers defense is underachieved. Like has the potential to be a pretty good defense, and they've not lived up to expectation. You look at the talent level on that D, whether it's Bosa, whether it's Khalil Mack, whether it's Delpin. I mean, they've got all 3 levels have playmakers. Is this a defense primed to get better as the season progresses, or is this a defense that we can just bet against consistently all year?
Well, you can't get much worse than how they really have been over the past couple of weeks and even dating back to last year, Teddy. That's for sure. When I'm looking at this passing yard in particular, this prop, I think it's great because, of course, they do have the run game too with Pollard, and I do think he will get a good game. Another prop I actually like, which I mentioned on Prop It Up, was Pollard longest rush over 14.5. And I feel like if they establish the running game as well, it only benefits Dak Prescott. I feel like the Chargers defense will look a lot better against teams that don't have a good run game because that pass pressure you mentioned there will be able to just dominate quarterbacks. But because they have that run game, I think they're able to keep teams guessing, and that will open things up for the passing game.
Andrew McInnis joining us, everyone. Guys, it's Half Price Mondays. Every package up for half price. Andrew, what do you got going for the clients tonight?
I have one best bet prop. It is not the one I just mentioned, so you can grab that at WagerTalk.com, half price. I was 3-0 on prop bets yesterday in the NFL, and I have one total play in the NHL, of course, half off as well, on an 8-2 NHL totals run. So nice. We'll get the sides going and figure it out in the NHL, but the totals are off to a great start, Prez.
Outstanding. Andrew McInnis, everyone. Guys, we do have over 125 likes. We will have a daily presidential address, but I do want to answer a question that Greg Macaluso asked, and it's a really good one. He wanted to know, in these back-to-back hockey games at the beginning of the season, is it still in play? Because, well, how are you tired at the beginning of the season? It is never more in play than at the beginning of the season. The beginning of the season is, in all seriousness, if you take the first month and you bet against every team on a back-to-back, you are going to have a successful betting experience. As the season progresses, the team's legs are going to get better, and then the back-to-back becomes less. However, obviously, towards the end of the year, they are all tired. But this is the time right now to bet against teams on back-to-back. Teddy, you have something to add?
Yeah, for NBA, it works too. It really does. At the very beginning, you think, oh, they're fresh, they're fresh. They're not conditioned to go back-to-back. And one of the angles that I love in the NBA is betting against a team on their first set of back-to-backs. Sometimes their second set of back-to-backs as well. It does take a little while for those legs, and again, it doesn't win every time. But if you bet it consistently, it should make you money.
Teddy, I got to tell you, man, if I didn't know everything in the world about betting, I would think this was the greatest show on earth.
Okay.
Yep.
You got to be
just wanted
to dress for us. We got to our likes.
Let's go, baby. Dan, I need music, man. I want the music back. Okay, guys, it's time for your daily presidential address. I want to make mention that it is half price Mondays over at WagerTalk.com. Any package from any handicapper, regardless, 5% plays, 2% plays, it makes no difference. Half price. So make sure to check that out. Nothing like losing my internet on the computer I have for my NHL right at the moment of the presidential address, but that's okay. I remember the plays. So first off, I like Columbus tonight against Detroit. I also like Florida against New Jersey, and I like the over in the Florida-New Jersey game. I believe New Jersey is going to play to the over most of the year. This is a team with an insane amount of speed. And Florida has lost both their games so far. This is their third game before they go home, and they are getting a big number. And this is a really good hockey team. Bad spot for New Jersey, great spot for Florida. Take them, take the over, take the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I do like the over in tonight's NFL game. I don't like it enough to release it to my clients, but it is 50.5. And the Chargers, I mean, what game isn't 27, 24, 20, 31, 27 when the Chargers are involved? So I like the over in that as well. Teddy, your opening line report starts in 18 minutes. I hope you feel better today, brother. Much love, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, sure. I'll be back again tomorrow, as will all of us here on Wager Talk Today, each and every weekday, 9 a.m. here on the left coast, noon for you back east. Obviously, the NFL opening line report starts at the top of the hour, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern. Between now and tomorrow's show, I hope I feel better too, Lawrence. All I know is when I finish my 2 shows, I'm going to go lay down. Between now and tomorrow's show, enjoy the games and best of luck with all your wagers. Cheers.